All right, welcome back to Gathering Folds. My name is Madonna Yoder, and today I'm folding a new pattern named Woodchips. This one uses the same tiling as Hurricane, which means it has all the same positions, all the same connectivity, but it uses different twists. So instead of an open twist in the center, it uses a closed twist. This will be more of a demonstration. I'm working on a rotated grid that's custom to this pattern, so I should get past the amount in the Hurricane tutorial that's linked in the description. So I'm going to go ahead and start folding. I'm starting by finding which grid lines actually go through the center. I'm looking for my pinch marks on the side from my rotated grid, and I know that it's correct when these flaps match up exactly. So that'll get me my open hexagon in the middle, and I can get rolling. It's a 64 division grid. I think the rotation fraction was 1/4 if you want to match what I'm doing. But I do encourage everyone to do the Hurricane tutorial first before trying to fold wood chips, just to have more background into what exactly is going on, since I'm moving at demonstration speed and not tutorial speed in this video. So this is my full normal folding speed. And we'll see how far I get. I probably won't finish the whole thing. 64 divisions is a lot to get through. But I do have my eyes on the chat, and I'm happy to talk about things too. And if there's no chat, that's also okay. I'll play myself some music on my headphones, because we are not messing around with music and copyright. So far, there's nothing to distinguish this pattern from the hex rom, tri-rom tiling sawtooth pattern. In that pattern, that triangle wrap I just folded would actually become a triangle twist in a position of symmetry in the broader pattern, but I'm going to fold that as a rhombus instead. The tiling, the actual tiling that is used here, is one that I came up with and named Hex Quad Rom Tri Expansion 1, which that name has no meaning to anybody but me. So that's why I've just been saying, oh, it's the same as this other one. I'm going to be folding along quickly. And I think the plan for this one is folding all the way to the edge, and not leaving a border, but I could get to the edge and then realize, oh, actually, there's potential. Because I might have aligned the tiling breaks to the edge, but honestly, I planned what grid to use for this pattern several months ago, because this is one of the patterns for the Advent of Tess 2026, this year, ebook, and I go through and I plan all of those patterns. In this case, this year, I planned them in April, I want to say. So it's been a couple months. I'm not, and I did like 40, well, at least 35 different patterns planned in the same week. So no, I don't have a strong recollection of what the plan was for this pattern. But everything I've folded so far, actually, if you were to fold these as triangles, that would be part of an early Advent of Tess series, either 22 or 23, 2022 or 2023. But what I'm going to do with it right now is make that a rhombus twist. And that we will see in the 2026 tutorial. And here I'll do a three-way intersection above and below. Although I believe I'm going ahead and doing this whole rhombus and this ring around the center. Yes. So I'll just go ahead and do the whole thing with some more wraps because I can. And so in the tutorial for Advent of Tess this year, Sawmill is the name of the original pattern. Woodchips is the variation for the ebook. In Sawmill, we'll actually have 3 rhombi forming a little cube. Well, a hexagon. You can think of it as a cube. There. And these are going to be triangle twists. And yeah, this one in this pattern is an open triangle. In the tutorial for Advent of Tess, it'll be a closed triangle because it'll be standing in for a rhombus twist. Actually, I think I can check. Actually, I have these right here. No, we're going to go even further. That'll be a whole rhombus. So that's what the Advent of Tess version is going to look like. It's going to have those flagstone chunks of rhombi on both sides, but this pattern is going to be slightly different. And then over here, the easy way to resolve that is with the closed triangle, or rather the easy way from this side. Three-way intersection. And flip, we'll make that a whole rhombus. And another whole rhombus. I think it's pretty safe to bet that in the main tutorial I'll actually work the other way around the center just to make it easier to fold one twist at a time. And here's the open triangle. And closed triangle. And rhombus, rhombus, wrap, overlap. And squish. And here I would zoom in more, but my camera literally can't. And this is the size of grid that I usually work with for my full pieces. And triangle time. Often for the first couple rings around the center, it's pretty arbitrary which way around the center you go. But for, like, once you stack up 1, 2, 3, 4 or more pleats, it becomes less arbitrary. So I'm going to actually jump down here and set up that rhombus and the one below it. sure that my layers in here are all in agreement about what order they're layered. And squish, squash. And got a closed triangle in here, open triangle up here. And then it's going to be easiest to fold this rhombus down here with a triangle wrap, putting yet another pleat through this area. And then come back for the open triangle twist. Okay. Cool. So, open triangles. I'm looking over at the crease pattern when I'm looking that way, or the chat. They have 2 pleats that come from rhombus twists, and the third goes to a closed triangle. That is the identifiable thing, but I don't want to work from this side down because that'll send a pleat back through what I already have. So I need to figure out what's happening off of that rhombus. Okay. I'm gonna have 2 spaces and a closed triangle with a compound wrap. Doesn't look like much yet. But that's going to be my 2-fold symmetry position in there. So I was reading off of the crease pattern the spacing of mountain folds between, or the distance between the valley folds for these 2 triangles. And then it was a compound wrap, so I can fold a full rhombus twist off of that. And these will be overlapping rhombus twists. That's just how this is going to go. And we're going to have 2 triangle twists. If I go ahead and do the closed one, that gets me a double depth pleat down here. And then I've got my open triangle here, And good, that's exactly what I want. The open triangle corners touching, sharing a pleat, and then coming around. That's my threefold symmetry position. And then I know on that pleat I need the third open triangle. And I think the easiest thing to do from here is actually to go to that closed triangle and see what kind of wrap is required. Okay, that's just a triangle wrap, so the rhombus that goes there is not going to be folded this ring around the center. And again, I did a compound wrap. My new rhombus does overlap my rhombus further in. And I'll probably come back at the end and play with which rhombus is on top for all of these pairs. Make it as symmetric as possible, which probably means alternating around each hexagon, which one is under and which one is over. That you can do for all of the sets. And then can do more while I'm here. So yeah, I haven't folded this pattern before today, but I did design it myself, and I have folded other patterns in this tiling. So it's not exactly a surprise what's happening. One of these days, it would be fun to do a live stream where someone gives me a crease pattern like a minute before, and like they tell me what grid to use, so I can have that ready. But if someone gave me a brand new crease pattern and I was literally figuring it out for the first time live, that would be a fun video. Trick with that rhombus is opening the right wrap and opening only precisely as much as you need. I guess that's the trick with most of the twists. But the part about finding the right wrap is definitely this rhombus twist problem. One cool feature of this pattern is that all those rhombus twists on the back end up having these little windows opening up that would just be slits if the rhombus twist was on its own. So that makes an interesting detail, and that'll definitely show up in the backlighting. Guess I could set up the closed and the open triangle at the same time, and that would be less stress on the pleats. Try that in the next set of parallel pleats. Okay, trying that out. I'll do it with the closed first. Boom. There we go. Both twists and the paper's less stressed. One other thing about these overlaps is they tend to want to pop out and conflict. So, gotta get that in check. And twists overlapping other twists is something that I've started talking about some already, and we'll be talking about some more. That's going to be a common feature in several of the Advent of Tess designs this year. That and flagstone motifs. And we're going to get some hybrid hexagon twists. Okay. Last set of parallel pleats. I'll do that trick with the 2 triangle twists that I did last time. And by trick, I mean just set them both up at the same time. I'm not running my pleat overlaps through as many layers. Dun, 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 dun. Oh, right, I've been doing this from the other side. And then on this extra overlap that we didn't see in the other sets of parallel pleats, I need my open triangle and a triangle wrap. And then conveniently, well, actually, I'll show a bit of backlighting because I always look at the backlighting when I finish a ring around the center. So we've got that denser area and then a sparser area. We'll get back into the denser in a bit. Come on, there we go. Okay, so got my set of parallel pleats. This is my first one. It's the triangle wrap that needs to be a rhombus twist. And that needs a compound wrap. Because the pleats are coming together at a 60-degree angle. And because it's a compound wrap, I can go ahead and fold the full rhombus. So we've actually got 3 different rhombus positions here. There's the rhombus on the front, and then on the back, there's the rhombus involved in overlaps, and the rhombus not involved in overlaps. That was another compound wrap, so we get a full rhombus here. And then closed triangle. And triangle wrap. And I knew it was closed triangle because I looked around the cluster of open triangles, and that's what I saw in those spaces. That's what has to be here, because that's a position of symmetry in the global pattern. Okay, and now we're on to the next set of parallel pleats. Got these two triangle wraps that are going to become rhombus twists, and I can either do them one at a time, so I could do just this one and then do the next that has a wrap, or I could do them both while I'm here. And the compound wrap that comes after. This is actually a decent time to go through and flip every other overlapping pair of rhombi. Because that's how the symmetry is going to work out. And let's see, we did these two, we wrapped there, and flipping over that is going to become a rhombus, so we will leave it be for this ring around the center, and we'll do the compound wrap. And turn that into a rhombus twist. And take the compound wrap from that and turn it into a rhombus twist. And then closed triangle at dense spacing and triangle wrap. And now those two rhombus twists, and I'll start from the upper one and its compound wrap. Very delicate work. There we go. And compound wrap becomes a rhombus and makes another compound wrap. We know from the last time we did this, we could ignore the triangle wrap because it's going to become a rhombus later. By the way, next ring around the center, we'll see the start of our next hexagons. How do I know that? Because we're about to have two rhombi on the front. That run into each other. And repeat. Right there, I'm feeling some tension in the paper because these rhombi decided to fight to be in the same location. As soon as that's resolved, I can actually lay everything down flat. And that was right under there, so definitely important to have that flat. Welcome, Erlu. Glad you could join us. Oh yeah. Yeah, it'll be a little bit before it gets into Tessellation Garden because it just missed the last round of photos that I did last week. But it'll be in there, I'm gonna say, by the time the Advent of Tess ebook comes out, mid-September. But yeah, there's a batch of a lot of tessellations coming out in the garden in the next couple weeks. Okay. Yep. And I'm sure you'll have plenty of queued up patterns to fold. I mean, there's already over 650. I think the current number is like 674 patterns in Tessellation Garden. So that should keep you busy for a good long while. I think with the next update, it'll go over 700. Dun, 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 dun. But yes, you can tell that this pattern is complicated by the fact that I've been folding for 45 minutes and have not reached repeats of the center. That's always a strong indicator. So with this rhombus twist, I've gotten all the way around the center. And now it's time to start seeing the repeats of our central hexagon. Starting with this rhombus twist, which is identical to that rhombus twist. And therefore feeds into a repeat of the center, which we will not be folding the whole hexagon. We will not be folding the whole hexagon. We will, however, fold the whole next rhombus. I can go ahead and set that up while I'm setting up the half hexagon tube and the triangle wrap after. Let's see. The only way forward out of this triangle wrap is a whole rhombus. And we get our overlapping rhombi again. And I'm looking at the global pattern. This one was on top, so I want this one to be underneath. I'll do that after it's squashed. And flipping over, yeah, that's the bridge between the two closed triangles. And this three-way intersection going to feed back into actually a compound wrap. We will have a rhombus to go back and fold. Yeah. Early's writing in the chat, with everything that already exists, all the origami tessellation designs that exist, it's difficult to invent new basic patterns on a small grid. Doesn't stop you from trying, but oftentimes you do realize that someone else did it first. Yeah, I definitely agree. There's like the only limited thing there is in origami tessellations is beginner level patterns. There's only a few truly beginner level patterns. But that doesn't mean that people can't reinvent and see how they work and swap out one twist for another, and just generally see how they would fold that particular pattern. There's still a lot to explore, even though the simplest designs are mostly taken. Okay. And there are also some gaps in the kind of standard patterns of the possibilities there. Like, and partly those gaps exist because those patterns take more grid. I'm thinking specifically about if there's choices of, let's say, open hexagon, open or closed hexagon, open or closed triangle. The patterns that take a, sorry, I'm having to think a little bit harder about this because I'm doing it backwards from the way I did it last time. The patterns that take open hexagon, open triangle on the same side, or open hexagon, open triangle, and open rhombus, which actually is something that I saw this week that someone designed, very much with the same awareness that in particular I had probably already folded it, but I hadn't, because open triangle, or open hexagon, open triangle, open rhombus, all on the same side, eats a lot of grid. And so I'd put off folding that particular one. I was aware that it was possible, but I hadn't actually folded it yet. And so there are those kinds of gaps in the existing patterns. Now, open hexagon, open triangle, with the hexagon and triangle on the same side, and open rhombus on the back, that'll be part of Advent of Tess this coming year. So there's some holes in the already designed patterns, but not many and not large ones. Some of the other holes, I think around half of the combinations of open and closed triangle twist in clusters of 4, or maybe a third of those combinations are unexplored. So that's another potential domain for original contributions. However, which ones are unexplored? You don't actually know that unless you're in Tessellations by Tiles or Tessellation Academy and have access to my tree diagram where I say, okay, here's how you make the choices, and here's the ones that I've already explored. So that is, I guess it's a high bar for knowing which ones are out there. Or you could have Tessellation Garden, and that would also tell you, but it's not as directly organized. So what I'm doing here is I'm putting in the next whole rhombus twist, and I know I need a whole rhombus because I did it and it was needed in the first set of parallel pleats. Like I came around the corner, I skipped forward and did the rhombus on the front first, and that caused a compound wrap. So now I'm confident that I need this rhombus, and then I'm doing a second triangle wrap where I already have a triangle wrap, and I can push the mountain fold one space over like I'm doing an open triangle twist on this wrap, but the second wrap makes it a closed rhombus instead. And then I don't have to go back and remember to fold a rhombus twist from the compound wrap. But yeah, we are zooming right along. I just looked up and it's 11 o'clock, 1 hour in. And I'll do at least another ring around the center, maybe 2. But yeah, that's a long time to sit still. Oh, one interesting thing about folding in rings around the center is that each time you add a new ring around the center, now you have one more pleat in your set of parallel pleats. So I guess if you wanted to, you could count how many rings around the center you've done by how many pleats are in the set of parallel pleats. This one I want to go underneath. I'm on my last set of parallel pleats of this ring around the center. Oop, opened too far. There we go. Dun, 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 dun. And there's a couple things I'm doing with these pleats stacked on top of each other that enforces the layering that I want for the next ring around the center. Mostly that's tucking those layers inside the existing pleat instead of wrapping them around the outside. If you follow that general guide, then it works out pretty well. Not so. And these overlapping rhombi, they do like to go and start biting each other. Okay. So now, do I get a whole next rhombus? Maybe. Start by adding the pleat from the hexagon. And yes, I do get the whole next rhombus because that cannot lay down as a three-way intersection. Oh, and by the way, the question that I raised at the beginning of, am I going to fold this pattern all the way to the edge or leave a border? It's going to be all the way to the edge because those edges are not lining up with the tiling breaks. So it will be an experiment to see exactly what ends up on the edge. I already knew from looking at the tiling that this that the tiling and the tiling, or the repeats and the tiling breaks, did not line up. So it was going to be one or the other. Oh boy, which one? That one was under. Hey, maybe we'll see some open triangles in this ring around the center. Haven't seen those in a while. Right here, actually. We won't see the whole cluster of 4, because we never see a whole cluster of 4 in one ring around the center. But we will see 2 opens and the closed between them. Oh, and the reason why we never see a cluster of 4 triangles all in one go is because that's 2 tile layers thick, just like a hexagon is 2 tile layers thick. So you do not see them in the same ring around the center. Okay, so now the debate is if the next pleat for the rhombus is here, yeah, that's going to need to be a whole rhombus. And that was our new pleat added to the set of parallel pleats. I was going to ask about the heat waves. They're continuing in Europe. Yeah, but the nights are bearable for now. That's good. Yeah, we're heading back into the 90s Fahrenheit today and tomorrow, which I don't remember the conversion off the top of my head. But probably something in the 35-ish zone during the day. Thankfully, we have good air conditioning in our house. So we're doing all right. And the plants are doing fine too. We got a good amount of rain after the end of the last heat wave. Not as much rain as my mom's been getting down in Virginia, but still, everything's growing fine. And I'm just watering the plants that are in pots, not the ones that are actually in the ground. And here, since we're doing 3 triangles, we may as well do all of them set up at once. Good morning, Ishan. Glad you could join us. Yeah, and Massachusetts getting up to 91, that's quite a problem. There's lots of places. I did my undergrad in Massachusetts, and we did not have strong central AC in the building where I lived. But thankfully, I think all of campus did have AC. And hopefully it cools down a bit before the weekend, because I'm going to be spending 3 days outside, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, for my family reunion in central Pennsylvania. So I'm hoping for a change in the weather. So the general, so back to the tessellation, the general thing that I'm doing that applies to folding any tessellation is in the ring around the center. I'm paying a lot of attention for the first set of parallel plates, and then I can relax a bit as I repeat that set of parallel plates for the other 5 sets of pleats. And then there's a little bit extra to figure out at the end, but it's all things that I've seen in between other sets of parallel pleats. Yeah, early without air conditioning, that's a really tough situation. I hope you have good airflow, good fans, and lots of ice packs. Some things that I've learned over the years is that the most effective places to cool yourself down are the lower back, between the thighs, back of the neck, and wrists, and armpits. But yeah, if you're overheated, that's where you put the ice. And before we got AC installed in our house, there would be days when my office got up to 75 or even 80 degrees, and I would strap an ice pack to my back, like wrap a towel around it so it doesn't burn you, like freezer burn. And then just strap an ice pack to my back and keep working. It's a bit of an extreme situation, but seems like it's getting more common across the world to need to be working inside when it's crazy hot. And there's some other things you can do, like having plants will help keep things cooler. But yeah, not an easy situation. Okay, should be tucked under. And here I'm moving into the last set of parallel pleats. For this ring around the center. Ooh, we're getting close to having the pleat hit the edge of the paper before it crosses the set. That's a sign that it's getting close to the edge. When my husband and I were looking for houses, I was initially thinking that I wanted one on the south side of a hill to have more light for the garden. But what I've realized now is that it's getting hot enough that the people on the south side of the hill and the top of the hill end up with crispy grass by the end of summer. But here, where we are on the north side of the hill, our grass stays green all summer long. And I haven't seen a year here with like drought conditions, but the water table, at least during the winter, is extremely high. There's water just coming up out of the side of the hill. So there's a lot of moisture back here, and that means that I was able to put my garden in the sunniest spot available and mulch really heavily, and I have not had to water at all. And by mulch heavily, I mean several inches of wood chips every fall. And that acts like a sponge. It soaks up all that water in the winter and stays moist all summer long. So I'm actually perfectly fine living on the north side of the hill right now. Okay, I just got around the center and I'm gonna flip back over here to see what needs to happen next. Got this guy going out, closed triangle. On there. And yeah, I'm gonna keep going for a while. I don't have a ton of other stuff on my to-do list today. Or at least not anything I want to do more than this. I have some photo editing, paying taxes to 4 different jurisdictions, or no, just 3. Still 3 different jurisdictions, and finishing writing my Instagram captions for the week. You know, admin stuff. And then, yep, that's what I suspected. That leaves a triangle wrap, so the next rhombus on the back will be done in the next ring around the center. And then the next thing would be the triangle. Let's double check. Yes. So hexagon, rhombus, down here's closed triangle. And I know that this needs to be an open triangle, and there's another. Okay, so that's a third 3-way intersection that's going to be a rhombus in the next ring, all 3 of these. And I suspect I'll probably fold them in one go. Okay, and then here, I'm going to have what I have here and here. Yeah, that's going to be a 3-way intersection waiting to be a rhombus. And then that's another of my closed triangles. Wow, that's a lot of wraps. A lot of wraps. And I know that there's 2 rhombus twists off of those triangles. And the question is, oh yeah, because each of these comes with a pair. Here I decided to do the compound wrap on both sides of my new triangle twist because it's easier to identify where this triangle goes than it is to identify where that rhombus goes. But with a wrap, it all works out. And then the question is, do I want that to stay on top? The answer is yes. If I go around, the one closer to there was on top. And that was also a compound wrap. And it's feeding into another compound wrap. And flip. And rhombus. And rhombus from the three-way intersection. Then a triangle and a three-way intersection. And a big triangle and an intersection, and a wrap. And a closed triangle. Is it? Yes. Okay. All kinds of wraps going on. Yeah, I think it is easier to do this triangle with the two compound wraps. And then this guy is the overlapping rhombus, and the last one I left on top. So this one's going to need to go below. And compound wrap over here. And then we're heading into the everything is a triangle wrap between stuff zone. So I can go ahead and set up a whole bunch of stuff with wraps in between. Got a closed triangle and an open triangle and another closed triangle and a rhombus, closed rhombus. Could have even done the rhombus above in the same sequence. That was really fast to squash. And then resolve. So I did the triangle with the two compound wraps, then I flip over to resolve those two compound wraps into rhombus twists. This one causes a compound wrap of its own. This time I'll go ahead and do all of the remaining twists set up in one sequence. Actually, I'll go ahead and squash that closed triangle because that was kind of a linchpin for getting everything else to lay down flat. That's much more controlled. If you're doing 5 twists in a row, you might want to squash the middle one first. Okay, and continuing. 2 more sets of parallel pleats in this ring around the center. So right now there are 3 possibilities for my intention with the grid rotation. The first is that I intended to align the repeats with the edge and fold all the way to the edge. The second is that I intended to align the tiling breaks with the edge and was wrong. The third is that I intended to align the tiling breaks with the edge and made some other error, because these tiling breaks are not aligned with the edge. But I can double check. Which of those we're dealing with. Oh, and my brain just defaulted to squashing those rhombus twists. Or maybe it was my hands, not my brain at all. Who knows? And one more set of parallel plates. And let's see, if I double check in my notes. It takes a while to load that page, so I'll keep folding. Let's see. Loading, wood chips. 5/19 is practically 1/4, which is what I folded. Okay. So that means I'm folding all the way to the edge. It doesn't have any notes about, or it doesn't, if I would have tried to align with the tiling break, then there would also be notes about which one is for the repeats. There we go. Now I can see the chat again. And if we've gone this far, I may as well go until you can at least see what the edge and the corner are going to look like. And as you can see, I don't have a really strong opinion about how many of these 5 twists I'm setting up at once. But when I do this last triangle, I do need a compound wrap under it for the rhombus that finishes the ring around the center. Okay. There, I've got my layering rearranged. On to the next set of parallel pleats. Starting here, it's twofold symmetry position, so I need an open triangle on this side. And down here, I also need an open triangle. And this will be a compound wrap coming off of it. It's an interesting compound wrap because there's this other pleat we've got to make sure is still folded. There's layers on the back are a bit fussy. And oh, and of course my rhombi were fighting. Okay, so now it's time to resolve these wraps. Here I've got the triangle wrap and the compound wrap, and those both need to turn into rhombus twists. And that'll be a double depth pleat because of the triangle wrap between them. I'll go ahead and squash those two this time. But I know I'm going to need another rhombus and triangle wrap and another rhombus okay, that's where I draw the line. because those two are going to be overlapping. It's better to squash one and then set up the other. I'm going to work my way through here first before going and resolving a bunch of triangles on the other side. And need another rhombus up above. That will be resolved with a compound wrap. So now I can squash all the things. That rhombus turned out a little wonky, but it'll be okay in the end. And which one goes on top? That one was under, so this one is over. See? Okay in the end. And then flipping over, let's see. This one's going to be a triangle. That one's going to be a rhombus in the next ring. I'll deal with the compound wrap when I'm ready to move on. This one's an open triangle. So you'll notice I'm working back up the triangle wraps, and that one is a closed triangle now. Okay, so then my compound wrap turns into a rhombus. And let's see. I know I need an open triangle here. That is going to cause what? Ooh, a compound wrap. So that makes a whole rhombus. And in here, I know I need a closed triangle. And there's someone who needs my attention. So I need to head off and deal with something else. Talk to y'all later. Bye.